I'm here, David Colby. TikToking me and shit. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. Welcome to number 200. Can you believe this? I look a little dim. Hang on here. There we go. Hi, everybody. So, welcome to the show. Yeah, Kirok, exactly. Dana has dibs on saying TikTok Shives. Who do you think you are, David Colby? But anyway, you're a scamp. Welcome to the show, everybody. This is number 200. This is the first live stream with the 500 character, the draconian 500 character limit for the pre-submitted questions by patrons and members. Oh, Mystery Steve says, I love your videos on Superman. Thank you very much. I love making them. I love Superman. Anyway, yeah, Dana ain't here. I'm not sure where Dana is. Probably taking a nap or somewhere complaining about having to teach The Great Gatsby. Poor Dana, having to teach one of the greatest novels ever written. Anyway, I'm going to do the patron and member questions first, as always. So if you have something in the chat that you want to talk to me about or ask me or whatever, please try to hold off until I get through the patron and member questions, and then I will spend the rest of the show hanging out with all of you wonderful folks in the chat. And I believe it will not take nearly as long to get through the patron and member questions because of the aforementioned much briefer character limit. So let's go ahead and Cass and Clef, first time live stream attendee, longtime fan of your atheist content. Thank you very much. Glad you're here. Welcome. Hope you enjoy the show. All right. So, patron and member questions. Here we go. Oh, there's Dana. Hi, Dana. I was just talking shit about you. All right, I'm not going to pay attention to the chat anymore from this point on. Great Gatsby, greatest book ever written, and you're just like, I have to teach. Anyway, never. I'm done with it. I'm coming back to the chat after the patron questions. First question from Stephen G. Clenard. Hey, Steve, do you, one of two? Second question from Stephen G. Clenard, two of two, like spicy food? First of all, very nicely done there. Very nicely done. And I can't tell you how much it pleased me for the first two questions of the new character limit to be that. That's magnificent, my friend. To actually answer your question, I do like spicy food, but I don't like it too spicy. Like, I'm not afraid of a little spice. I don't like go out of, if I'm at a restaurant, I'm not like, oh, mild, please. Don't, but I don't chase the spice. I'm not drawn in by the spice, and I don't like excessive amounts of spiciness, but I do like I would call it a reasonable amount of spice, Yeah. So I sort of like spicy food. Matthias, thanks for your video about moderates, a moderate amount of spice. It reminded me of what John Oliver said when he was describing certain middle ground positions as being the middle ground between sense and nonsense, with his example being someone might say that it would be crazy to eat a bar of soap, so I'll just eat half of it. What percentage of elected Democrats do you reckon are actually socialists in disguise, but have betrayed their own views by pre-compromising with the nonsense Republicans regularly vomit out? I would guess that most of the Democrats who are guilty of what you're saying, who have compromised too much with Republicans or pre-compromised or anything like that, I would guess that most of them are not socialists, that they would not identify themselves as socialists, even in private, and they certainly could not be described as socialist or socialistic if you look at their policies. I think most Democrats who are guilty of what you're describing there would be more centrist or middle of the road establishment type Democrats. I'm not going to say that there aren't any socialist or socialist-like, socialistic Democrats who are guilty of that. But I think the percentage is probably pretty low. Again, I don't know for sure, but I think the percentage of socialists or Democrats who are at least like socialists or friendly to socialists, or have views that are more acceptable to socialists. I would guess most of them are not as guilty of pre-compromising with Republicans. Debbie, I have been binge watching the Star Trek original series to learn about the show. I have a couple of episodes left to watch, but what I noticed is Captain Kirk had the ladies. Seemed every episode it was someone from his past or he just met. He certainly does not lack in that department. I do not think he is a womanizer, but he is at least a player. What do you think? Thanks for all you do. You are an amazing storyteller. Well, thank you very much, Debbie. Um, I did a video about this some years ago. I think it's called Is Captain Kirk Actually a Womanizer? And I believe my conclusion was that no, he isn't, for a couple of reasons. First, even though, as you point out, I mean, he does have a lot of love interests throughout the show, but not as many as his reputation suggests. Like, he's not jumping into bed with a new woman every single week. He does have a lot of love interests, but it's not quite that frequently. And also, most of his relationships that we see in the show, he seems kind of serious about. You know, he's not having like frivolous casual sex. He is either reconnecting with an old girlfriend who he once upon a time had a very serious relationship with, or he's like developing really deep feelings for whoever, you know, the new girl in his life is. So I wouldn't say that either of those traits is consistent with how we usually understand a womanizer. But yeah, does he play the field? Is he a player? Is he sexually active? Yes, of course, certainly. I don't even, it might be a stretch to even say he's promiscuous. I don't even know if I would say Captain Kirk is promiscuous, but I certainly don't think that he's a womanizer. But is it fair to notice that he gets around, that he's popular with the lady folk? Yes, absolutely. Is he a player? I think maybe that's a fair way to put it. William Tucker. I hope shorter questions make for a tighter presentation. Be well. Thank you, William. That's the whole idea. And so far, so good. So thank you for your good wishes and thank you for being a supporter. Steve Shives. Now, this is weird because I don't remember writing this. Maybe it's someone with, it's one of those cosmic coincidences where it's someone with my exact name who is also a fan of my YouTube channel to the point that they decided to become a supporter. These things could happen. How come so many of you nerds care so much about stupid lore and world building? Did I write this? Did I black out and write this? And minutia over character and storytelling and goddamn theme. Get in that locker and develop some goddamn media literacy. Okay, see, I didn't write this because I would have written this better. I wouldn't have just wedged a goddamned in. First of all, I never say goddamned. I never say damned. I say damn. So I would say, you know, storytelling and goddamn theme, not goddamned theme, but also I wouldn't say goddamn theme and I wouldn't capitalize theme superfluously. And, but I mean, I might say get in that locker. Yeah. Yeah. But, so, you know, as a Steve Shives pastiche, maybe 6, 7 out of 10. What do you think? Good effort. Good effort. Thanks for being a supporter. Darby, which Star Trek alien of the week species do you feel would make for an interesting recurring character or main cast in a show? I personally would like to see a Zaldan, which is the webbed hand Federation species that was introduced as a culture test for Wesley in Coming of Age. A species that dislikes the false veneer of courtesy, feels like a fun character to explore in a diplomatic universe. Yeah, maybe, but you'd have to be careful that it didn't become just a one-note joke that got, you know, beaten into the ground. But the general idea there you have is good. Something that will stir things up, something that will add a bit of conflict or, you know, shake up the general sort of status quo that Star Trek casts tend to have, even in the current age. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. What would be an interesting alien of the week that would make a good main character for a show? I honestly can't think of any because I really don't care about the aliens. I would much rather just make up my own aliens than pull aliens out of the bag and say these guys. Um, I don't know. Maybe the Mintakans, those Romulan looking guys who were on the planet that thought Picard was God for like a day. Maybe established that one of them somehow made it off the planet and joined Starfleet. And like everybody treats him as though he's like a superstitious guy, but actually he's not. He has like a rigidly scientific viewpoint, but everybody acts like, he must be some country bumpkin. I don't know. I'm just making this up off the top of my head. Because like I'm not like I've said many times, I'm not here for the aliens. I don't care. But maybe we can do something with that. Like just grab one of those Mintakans out of his village and say, hey, you're in Starfleet now. Have fun. Donovan, hey Steve, I wanted to ask, the Nolan Batman trilogy has been undergoing a bit of critical reevaluation lately or recently, mentioning how the films seem embarrassed to be superhero films, taking an inherently silly concept like Batman and trying to justify every aspect of his character as not being a person who decided to dress like a bat because he's just that sort of freak, but a normal right-headed person with a long-term plan. Where do you fall on this discussion? I don't see it that way. The Nolan films, especially the first one, especially Batman Begins, I think definitely spent too much time trying to explain and justify everything and give like plausible explanations for all of Batman's stuff. Like, oh, here's where the Batmobile came from, and here's where his Batsuit came from, and here's blah 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 blah. They tried to give little like grounded explanations for all the bits of Batman. I think that is a waste of time. And I think like Matt Reeves did almost none of that and still managed to make a fairly grounded feeling Batman movie in a different way, but still is a very grounded feeling Batman movie in his own style. But I really like the Nolan movies, especially The Dark Knight. I've never been a huge fan of Batman Begins. Ironically, even though you say it's been reevaluated for being embarrassed to be a superhero film and for trying to take the silliness out of it. To me, where Batman Begins goes wrong is when it gets too silly, is when it's made this huge effort for like the first half of the movie to be really grounded and serious and plausible. And then all of a sudden, there's a magic microwave weapon that can blow up all the pipes, and it's on the plot train that runs right through the heart of the city, and it's going to blow up all the pipes. And the Scarecrow is going to put fear gas in all the water that's going to turn to steam when the microwave weapon. It's like, wait, holy shit, where did this come from? What happened to the plausible superhero movie? So that's where it kind of takes a hard shift in directly into Goofyville after a certain point. And for me, it was such an abrupt shift that the movie kind of lost me after that point. I was like, what the fuck happened here? But no, I think beginning with The Dark Knight and carrying through to The Dark Knight Rises, I don't think it had the problem of feeling embarrassed about being a superhero film. And I think what Nolan did in his version of Batman, especially in The Dark Knight, worked very well. And I still think The Dark Knight is a fantastic movie. The best Batman movie other than maybe Matt Reeves's The Batman. So no, I don't think I do in general. I am aware of and sensitive to that feeling that somebody made a superhero movie who was embarrassed to be making a superhero movie. I think Zack Snyder's Superman and Justice League movies give off that feeling 100 times more than Christopher Nolan's Batman ever did. I think Zack Snyder's Man of Steel and Batman versus Superman and Justice League movies all feel very much like the work of someone who is deeply embarrassed to be making a superhero movie and is trying everything he can to convince the audience that no, this isn't funny book stuff. This is really deep, serious, important stuff. I don't get that nearly as much from the Nolan Batman movies, especially once you get past Batman Begins. Sean O'Sullivan, would you rather be a duck-sized human or a human-sized duck? I'd rather be a duck-sized human because it would be easier to hide. If you're a human-sized duck, you have any idea how many people are going to be trying to kill you and eat you take you for meat? And where are you going to hide if you're a human-sized duck? So I would much rather be a duck-sized human. Neither scenario is ideal, but I'd rather be the duck-sized human. Faragrim, what's one project you've always wanted to realize but haven't yet been able to? David Lynch's Return of the Jedi. I've been trying to get that made for years, and I can't. I just can't get. I've been like, why can't I get this movie off the ground? But I just can't do it. And now that David Lynch has died, unfortunately, it's probably never going to happen. But yeah, on my own, I don't know if it's not something I've always wanted to realize, but I do have a couple of ideas for like longer form videos that either I'm stuck on the script phase of, and these are things that like I would plausibly be able to do. It's not like a movie that I'm writing that I'm never going to be. These are things that I have the resources, like financially and physically, that I could do with the setup I have now, but I just haven't been able to do them either because of time or because, like I just said, I'm stuck at a certain point in the script and I don't know where to go with it or how to get it to where it needs to be. But yeah, there are a couple of things that are kind of on the back burner for me creatively that I would like to find a way to do at some point that I just haven't been able to yet. So there's more than one project, but there's really not much I can say about it other than, yes, there are things that I haven't been able to do that I would like to do at some point. General Contact Unit Problem Child. Obama argued for incrementalism in his Mark Maron interview. Something that bugged me is he talked around the fact that accepting incremental change means accepting some people will die who might not otherwise. Like, he talked about how a more incremental approach to climate change will still result in coastline being flooded, but he only mentioned people losing homes because of that, not dying. You could tell he was being very careful with his words for that reason. Do you think that's cowardly? I don't know if I would say it's cowardly. Measured, carefully chosen, as you say. I didn't see I haven't listened to or watched that interview, so I can't speak exactly to what Obama was saying or tell you whether I agree or disagree with your take on it. I will just say that the reason why most of us who are supportive of incrementalism are supportive of it is because we don't see the alternative to incrementalism. We don't see that the alternative to incremental change is radical, overwhelming change. We see that the alternative to incremental change is no change. And I think that's a point of disagreement I know that is a point of disagreement with a lot of people, but there are also people who reject incrementalism and pretend like, well, people who support incremental change over pushing for more sweeping change are choosing to deny the more sweeping change, when actually what it is it's looking at what is likely and what is possible in the short term now, and not wasting time and effort chasing after something that will be much more difficult to accomplish and much more likely to fail, versus something that could be accomplished and will result in improvement from what we currently have, that won't take us all the way there, but will take us part of the way there and give us a better position from which to fight for more progress in the future. And the alternative to that, as many of us see it, is not more change faster, but less change. So in the climate change example, like, what's the alternative? We take an incremental approach to climate change, and is there a reasonable alternative of that? I mean, can we fix a whole bunch of the climate change problem in a short time? Like, if that option is on the table, I'd love to hear about it. But if not, if the two most likely options are try to fix things a little bit at a time as much as we can in each step, but take an incremental approach, versus don't do anything, well, which is better? Like, which would you prefer? But again, I can't speak specifically because I didn't see the Obama interview or listened to it that you're referencing. Brian Beswick, what's your take on Worf from TNG? Is Is he representation or veiled racism or both? A regular character of color, but he's consistently angry, aggressive, having to control his warrior urges. Seems like a racist stereotype. It can be read that way, and I don't think it's completely unreasonable to read it that way. I think it's probably unintentional. Like, I don't think that Gene Roddenberry and the creators of TNG were sitting around going, let's cast a black guy as a Klingon and let's make him every negative stereotype about, aggressive, violent black people that we can, put in there. I don't think that was the case, but I'm sure that there was some obliviousness, there was a lack of recognition of that. Nobody really noticed that might be a problem. I'll put it that way. I have no problem believing that. But I also think that maybe you could make that argument more strongly about Worf in his earlier years, but I think as that character continued to evolve, even in the TNG years, much less once he got to Deep Space Nine and really became a dynamic character, I don't think you can make that argument about him in the end. And even at the beginning, I mean, there are different facets of Worf that you can analyze. Yes, you can look at him from a racial angle and say this is a character played by a black actor, and he's playing a character that has a lot of characteristics that have traditionally been assigned to black men in a stereotypical and negative way. But Worf also represents the alien in the human society, or the immigrant, the adoptee. He also represents literally an adoptee. He's the person who comes from a completely different culture and has to assimilate into the new culture, but yet he still has a very strong attachment to his old culture. So there's a lot of, adoption metaphors and immigrant metaphors wrapped up in Worf. There's a whole bunch of different angles that you can view Worf from. So as a character as a whole, I think he's more complex than, positive representation for black people or racism. But like I said, I don't think that pointing out that there are some racially problematic things about the character and the fact that a black actor was cast as that character, I don't think that is a completely unreasonable thing to notice and to point out. None ya business. Except I know exactly who it is. So, anyway. So last Friday, Imiru was assaulted during a TwitchCon event. I understand that police were involved. Was this a case of the SDPD wanting to go all Rodney King on her ass? How much dusty angel was she consuming? Oh, are you one of those bleeding hearts who now wants to provide her with a alibi? Whatever. Anyway, it's interesting that some male YouTubers are fearing going to TwitchCon. Wimps. Asmongold, more like Asmon cough, I got a cold. Am I right? I don't know who any of the people you're mentioning are. So I will just say, yes, you are right. You are right. And maybe, switch to decaf, or half and half, or maybe do a regular in the morning, and then after lunch, if you need to have another cup of coffee, just do decaf from that point on. Wolfram and Hart. So Steve, question involves two of your specialized areas of knowledge: Public Domain Day and Batman. After the Mickey Mouse Protection Act didn't get extended once again, there was hope some true giants may become public domain sooner. My question is, when 95 years following Batman's intro of 1938 hits, so 2034, won't the initial version be a gun-wielding executor? No guns rule began in Batman 4, so no Detective Batman for at least 2 more years. What do you think will happen? Well, I mean, you're right in the sense that, yes, it will be the first works that feature Batman to become public domain will be the stories published in 1938. So anyone who wants to do derivative works of those will legally be limited to working with the version of Batman that is seen in those 1938 books. Now, does that mean that anyone who wants to do a legal public domain Batman story after that point will have to have him carrying a gun? I'm not sure. I mean, because you could always make the argument of, well, I wrote a Batman story that is derived from the version of the character first published in 1938, but my Batman doesn't have a gun, not because I'm also taking from a later, still copyrighted version of the character, but because I just decided on my own that my Batman that I am writing about, who is derived from the 1938 Batman, will not carry a gun for reasons that I, as the author of these stories, have arrived at on my own. I mean, whether or not a character carries a gun might be a vague enough or a generalized enough concept that you could get away with it, even if, Batman not carrying a gun didn't become a strongly embedded part of the character until later in works that would still be copyrighted. Now, I don't know. Like, I'm certainly not a copyright lawyer, and with characters like Batman that are serialized characters, and so it's, I mean, yes, portions of Batman will start to become public domain, but the entire character will not be. Um, I'm not sure exactly what the legality of that will be, but I would wager a guess that you might be able to get away with at least having your Batman just not having a gun. Maybe you don't, maybe you can't, you wouldn't be, you might get in trouble if you go out of your way to like make a point, about your Batman not having a gun. But you might be able to get away. Like if somebody wanted to do their very own original public domain Batman comic once 1938 becomes public domain, and they just draw their Batman without a gun, they might be able to get away with that. But I am not sure. I really don't know. No King's marches, rallies, practical tangibility. John, no King's events, of which I agree, yes, sheer enormity and galvanization is visually pleasing to any sensible person's brain. However, what endures and are the far-reaching tangible results of these events. People who attend and appreciate these events are already in the choir. Those who don't scoff and sneer at those who do. I am a Christian. I attend Southern Baptist services, a Democrat who teeters toward democratic socialism. So I have a perch at which to witness both sides of the street. Well, I mean, the most recent No Kings protests had the largest turnout ever. So, I mean, at the very least, the choir is getting bigger, or more people are choosing to sing in the choir. So, I mean, I think that's a tangible result. And I mean, the real tangible results will come if this is able to continue and if this is able to be translated into actual political action. If we just have a couple of really impressive looking big nationwide street protests, but then, the Republicans keep control of Congress and win the presidential election again in 2028, then I guess you can say, well, yeah, we had some feel good moments, but we didn't do anything. If it has to translate into actual results. And so if it does that, then we can say, yes, absolutely. Those protests were worth it. But just judged on their own value, the ones in June were very impressive and very well attended and got a lot of attention. And the ones just this past week were by every estimate I've seen, were substantially bigger with a much larger turnout. And the issues and the concerns that inspired those protests and that got those people out in the streets, and have gotten them to be more interested and more engaged in these efforts, those issues are not going away. And if anything, they're getting worse and more urgent all the time. So I'm I am certainly not someone who looked at those No Kings protests and thought, big deal. It's just a bunch of people holding signs. Like, I think that there is every reason to be hopeful that it will translate to more tangible results in the future. Paramount minus, I see what you did there. To Trek or not to Trek, Shawshank needs redemption. Boy, you put some work in on that one, didn't you? Hi, John again. Because of your enjoyment of Star Trek, I used a free trial of Paramount Plus to binge watch everything Star Trek. Except my experience with the app and the interface itself was so slow and clunky. What has been your experience? Do you think that franchises like Star Trek, Superman, Batman, and Jurassic Park should have definitive endings? In Shawshank Redemption, how did he put back the poster of Raquel Welch, which covered the pipe that he crawled through to freedom? He had it attached at the top, so it just came open like a flap, and then he just kind of crawled under the flap, and then once he was in the hole, it fell back over the hole. Yeah, well, with a franchise like Star Trek, I mean, as long as they keep making new entries in the franchise itself won't have a definitive ending. But I believe that individual series should have definitive endings. Yes. Yes. And, with Superman and Batman, it's more like the Superman and Batman franchises don't consist of like spin-offs so much, although there's some of that. They consist more of new artists or people working in new forms of media doing their own spin on the characters, doing their own interpretation. So there are different versions. There's the Tim Burton Batman movies and the Christopher Nolan Batman movies, and there's Batman the Animated Series, and there's even within the comics, there's even when the comic character takes place, even when the stories all take place in the same universe, you still have, there's Batman the way Brian Azzarello wrote him, and there's Batman the way Jeff Loeb wrote him, and there's Batman the way Denny O'Neil wrote him, and there's Batman the way Bill Finger wrote him back in the day. And there's, what I mean? Like, there's a different spin and a different interpretation. So individual variations, individual versions, I think can and should, when possible, have definitive endings, like with Superman. Like, if James Gunn sees a light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to his version of the DC universe, and he wants to write like one final Superman movie to sort of close out the book on his version of Superman or his version of the DC universe, I think that's a great idea. It doesn't mean that nobody's allowed to do any more Superman after that. It just means that his version is over and it has a nice, satisfying ending. So no, yes, I think whenever possible, those kinds of things should be done. My experience with the Paramount Plus app on my TV has been fine. No problems whatsoever, or at least no problems beyond what I sometimes experience with any other streaming service. Where sometimes it hangs up, sometimes you have to restart it, whatever. But like Paramount Plus certainly is no worse than any other app on my TV. The Paramount Plus app on my computer is fucking garbage. And not so much for the interface, but just because I think it might be my Malwarebytes software and the way the ad blocker kind of works on it. But I used to use the Paramount Plus app to stream the Star Trek episodes that Dana and I watch together on Wednesdays for our Trek Reluctantly show. And lately I've just been loading the Paramount Plus website in an incognito window of Firefox instead of using the Paramount Plus app. And it works a lot better because the app is fucking shit. The app, I was like, it was just stopping episodes right in the middle. And I had to reload it. And sometimes I had to reload it 3 or 4 times before I could get it to play the fucking episode again. It was a huge pain in the ass. But nobody watching our live stream would ever notice because I'm a fucking professional. But it happened a lot. And with playing it in Firefox just off the website, it doesn't happen nearly as often. So TV, just fine. Website or computer, the desktop app, not very good at all. Some random geek who will use the 500 characters for their mini essays. Diabolical. October 13th is Indigenous Peoples Day, or what it really is, fuck Christopher Columbus Day, because colonizers always need legends to justify the genocides they do. Settlers, white people, learn about land back and what that means. Also, learn whose land you are on. And every day is Indigenous Peoples Day. Between October 19th and October 25th is Ace Week. Learn about what is asexuality and aromanticism. Asexuality.org and aromanticism.org are good starts. Good information, geek. And then the second of Geek's questions, some random geek who reminds folks that you can't be a leftist and be okay with capitalism. This Friday's paycheck is going to be a light paycheck for me. Same with next paycheck, since I will be taking 2 days of vacation and will be in Portland for the anime convention KimuraCon. Yes, I have more time off when I don't work Saturdays, but that also means I have less money to give to Joanna, Phoenix, Joey being Indigenous, and Ace, Lina Quinn, and Naz the Nico. Naz is also Ace. I know I should take care of myself and not work too many hours, but who will give my friends money? Well, I'll just tell you the same thing I've told you several times. But first of all, I'm glad you're taking time off. I'm glad you're going to a con. I hope you have a good time. It's good for you to do that. It's okay for you to take time for yourself. You have taken on the responsibility of trying to provide for your friends, which is good, which I'm not going to tell you not to do that or try to make you feel bad for doing that. That's a wonderful thing that you do, and it's to your credit. And it shows what kind of a person you are, that you do that and that you care that much about your friends and you try to help them in any way you can. But it's okay. And in fact, it's vital to remember yourself too, and to take care of yourself and to take time off when you need it and to give yourself the grace to take time off when you need it. Because even though you feel responsible for your friends and you feel bad when you don't have enough to give your friends, and that's completely human and normal and understandable and good. It means you have empathy. It means you have a heart. But keep in mind, and I know you know this, but just as a reminder, you didn't create the problems, and the problems are not your sole responsibility to fix. And if you need to take time off, or you need to take a weekend and go to a con and have fun and do something else and enjoy something in life, you have every right to do that, and it's good to do that and important to do that. So I'm very glad that you're taking some time off and going. And I know you do, and this isn't like the first time you've ever done it, but it's good to know that, you know, you're taking some time off and going to do something that will be fun for you, and try not to beat yourself up too much. Okay, have a good time. Mental ward. Who does Starfleet think they are, calling the Prophets wormhole aliens, when Starfleet are the aliens in that sector of space? You're right, they should have called them the wormhole beings. That would have fixed the whole thing. So just go back in time 30-something years and just fix that. Just cross out wormhole aliens in the show Bible and put in wormhole beings. Lynn Kibblemom, who is Aunt Tifa. Nice to meet you, Aunt Tifa. I hear that people on Fox News are so mad at you. Hi, Steve. Did you attend a No Kings protest? I did, and here's one of my favorite takeaways. In your best Forrest Gump voice, please. Mom always said, Christy Noem is like a box of chocolates. Both will kill your dog. Thank you very much. I did not attend a No Kings protest. I did not. However, there was one in Hagerstown that, from the pictures I've seen on Facebook, had a very nice, very encouraging turnout, which I was very, very proud and happy to see. But no, I did not attend myself. I was working that day. Not that that's an excuse. I'm not saying like I couldn't possibly have gone. I was shooting YouTube videos, but I didn't go. Havar B. Hojem. Can you rethink Star Trek The Next Generation, but Deanna Troi is half Ferengi, half Betazoid? She still joins the regular poker game, but she insists that they play for real money. There you go. I just rethought the character for you. Thank you for your question. Donkey Hody, who is having trouble with the new character restriction. Lately, I've seen comments by maggots that we already don't have a king, and what are we getting so upset about? When I saw the pictures of the demolition of the East Wing, I commented, are we sure that he's not going to demolish the whole thing and replace it with a castle? I got comments like, I hope so, and a palace would be better. This is why we march and protest against this regime. We don't want a king. We want a leader who will work for the people and not someone who only serves himself. Exactly. You are exactly right. People who respond to, no king's protests by saying, calm down, he's not a king. Those are the people you're protesting against. Those people aren't to be taken seriously. Those people are to be shouted down and outnumbered and hopefully massively outvoted when the time comes. Here's another one from Don Quixote. I just heard Warner Brothers is going to be up for sale. Hopefully this won't affect the DCU going forward. Your thoughts? Well, yes, I hope so. I think that the DCU as it currently exists is safe because so far it has been successful. If the next project to be released, if the next movie, I guess the next movie in the DCU is going to be the Supergirl movie next year. If that like completely bombs, then maybe it might be something to worry about. Maybe then if there's new ownership coming in, you might start to worry and go, oh geez, they're going to fire everybody and start over again because the Supergirl movie bombed. But as long as things continue to do well, I don't think there's anything to worry about. In fact, a successful and profitable and popular DC movie franchise will probably be viewed as one of the jewels in the crown if it is indeed sold to another company. So as long as it stays popular and makes money, I don't think there's anything to worry about. If that changes, and especially if it changes in like a very drastic way where, the public perception of the project becomes negative rather than positive, as I think it currently is, then that might be something to worry about for those of us who are fans of it. But as long as it continues going well, I don't think there's anything to worry about. They're not going to go in and change it just for the sake of it. If they think it's making money the way it is, they're going to leave it be and let James Gunn and Peter Safran continue to run it the way they've done it successfully. Jim P. Loaxana, despite her appearances being awful, her interactions with her daughter were sometimes interesting. Would it have been better if they focused more on her actual personal relationships than trying to have her force being edgy? The problem is whatever angle they took, they just needed to execute it better. Somebody left a comment on that video, I think today or yesterday, that really got to the nub of the Loaxana situation for me. They said, and they compared her to, because in the video I mentioned like the fact that she's a bad person and the fact that she's unlikable isn't necessarily the nail in the coffin, because there's lots of characters in Star Trek that are horrible, reprehensible people. And I mentioned like Q and Gul Dukat and Kai Wynn. But, and I kind of made this point in the video, but this commenter made it a lot more succinctly. They said, all those other characters like Gul Dukat and Kai Wynn, you're supposed to think they're bad people. Like they're acknowledged within the fabric of the show as bad people. And you are meant to engage with them on that basis. You're not supposed to think Gul Dukat is a nice guy or a good guy or a hero. You're supposed to think, and the show wants you to think, that he's a piece of shit. You're not, the show doesn't want you to think that Loaxana is a piece of shit. The show wants you to think she's funny, to sympathize with her, to feel bad for her, whatever. The show wants you to have a generally positive view of her. Even as you acknowledge that, she makes things difficult. She makes life difficult for the other characters, but you're supposed to think she's enjoyable and fun and, whatever. But at least in my mind, and in the mind of a lot of other people, that's not how she comes across. She comes across as loathsome and repellent, but she's not supposed to be. And that's the problem. That disconnect between what the show wants you to think about her and what, through watching the show, many of us do think about her. That's the problem. So whatever they did, whatever different thing they would have done with her, whether they focus more on her relationships or whatever, that gap needs to close. The gap between what the show is trying to do and what the show is actually doing needs to go away. And as long as they did that, whatever they did would be fine, probably, because that was the real problem. Not that they didn't focus enough on her relationship with her daughter. It's that whatever they were doing, it wasn't having the effect, at least again, in the minds of many of us, it wasn't having the effect that they wanted it to have. Matthew Datcher, happy 200th episode. During the previous episode, you mentioned that you had to purchase a new 4K Blu-ray player. The geek in me needs to know what hardware you purchased. How would you review it? Finally, are you worried about an impending death of physical media? Thanks. Here's to the next 200. Thank you very much, my friend, and thank you for being here with me all these years as a friend and supporter. It's all I can tell you, man, is it's a Sony 4K Blu-ray player. Like, I don't know the exact model number off the top of my head. It's a Sony 4K Blu-ray player, and it plays my 4K Blu-rays as well as my other Blu-rays as well as my DVDs just fine. So I would review it like that. I bought it. It works. It does what I wanted it to do. 5 stars. Like, it's good. It's good. I'm quite happy with it. Am I worried about the impending death of physical media? I mean, not really, because all of the things that I have felt moved to buy on physical media recently have been available. Like, I haven't had the experience of, I want to get that on Blu-ray, and it just doesn't exist. But I fear that we are moving in that direction at some point still. So I mean, I don't think about it or have conscious concern about it a lot. But yeah, I mean, I certainly don't want physical media to go away completely. I think there must always be a place for it, and I do think having physical media available and having that as an option, like if there's a certain thing that, whether it's a book or a movie or an album or whatever, having the option to buy it and have it and it's yours is a very important option for people to have, especially as we continue to move into this sort of everything is a subscription model, where you don't actually own anything. You can just pay a little extra for a long-term unlimited rental until the rights expire, and then you don't have that thing anymore. You know what I mean? Like, I think there needs to be an alternative to that, and physical media is the alternative to that. So I hope for that reason that it doesn't go away. Yeah. Okay, here's Dana's question, everybody. Purple is greater than green. I guess that's a knock. Is that like a knock on the green light at the end of the dock? You got to get your shots in. Anyway, here's Dana's question. Thinking about that overrated book with regards to the American dream, most of the characters, especially Gatsby, pursue it versus the Buchanans who achieved it and feel entitled to do whatever they please. Does the book give alternatives? It also makes me think of Trump's White House changes. My feeds are full of anguish, but I find it hard to be upset about that when food benefits were canceled. There's multiple genocides, and we're in the middle of an environmental crisis. Am I underreacting? Thoughts? Well, to answer the last question first, no, I don't think you're underreacting. I think it's reasonable to be more concerned about those other issues you mentioned. I mean, I think I would agree with you. Is what happened, is what is still happening, despite the supposed ceasefire in Gaza, worse than Trump tearing down the East Wing of the White House? Yes. Yes, clearly. It's much worse. And we should be much more concerned about it and much more interested in it. Yes, climate change, way more serious, way more important, way more worthy of our attention than Trump tearing down the East Wing of the White House to build a ballroom. So no, you're not underreacting. You're reasonably reacting. But it's also reasonable for people to be upset. And I don't want to get too far into it here because someone else asks a similar question later on, and I want to save some of my answer for that because I do have additional thoughts. But no, I don't think you're underreacting, but also I don't think that most of the people that you're seeing in your feed who are upset about it, I don't think most of them are overreacting either. But as for Gatsby and the American Dream, I don't know if the book gives alternatives. I don't think that's really Fitzgerald's aim. But I do think the book shows that there is a peril in pursuing the American dream in that way. That there is, that if you chase that American dream, the American dream of, you know, having money and having the nice house and having the respect of your neighbors and being impressive to people, like and or even just in Gatsby's case, because in Gatsby's case, having all of those things are just trappings. They're just things that he acquires in the hope of being able to get what he really wants, which is to be with Daisy. But even that, Gatsby, he puts all of his effort into having the single vision of the life that he wants. And he seems pretty inflexible about what that means. Like there's the life that he wants, and that's all he wants. That's his whole existence has been steered toward getting this one version of his life that he wants. And I think the book argues that that is a dangerous way to live, and that is an ultimately unfulfilling way to live, because we see what it ends up doing to Gatsby. It costs Gatsby everything. And even the Buchanans, Daisy and Tom, you can say they end up better off than Gatsby by the end of the book, but it's very clear that their lives are hollow and unfulfilling. That even though they have what is on paper the perfect life and they have attained the American dream, that they are not happy and they are not good. So I don't think the book gives alternatives, but I think the book argues that what people have, even then, in the 20s, and of course it ended up being kind of prophetic, because at the end of the 20s we saw the complete devastation of the American dream. But that chasing that kind of American dream, chasing that materialistic American dream, is hollow and self-defeating. So I think that's what the book does more than give an alternative. Jan, October 22nd, the 63rd anniversary of the 7-point speech by JFK about the Cuban Missile Crisis. I rewatched The Missiles of October, wonderful movie in my opinion, and the overwhelming feeling I had was how even the extremists in government then were better than the best of today's government. Interesting. But my question, have you seen any of the amazing put-downs by NYC candidate Curtis S. against Cuomo? Curtis S. is an unusual guy, but he nails Cuomo every time. I can honestly tell you I have not been paying any attention to Curtis Sliwa at all. He has been the other guy on stage. And actually, it's because he's not wearing the red beret in the debate, so I don't recognize him at first. I'm like, who's that very, very old white guy in between Zoran Mamdani and Andrew Cuomo? Who is that guy? It's Curtis Sliwa. I just don't recognize it because he doesn't have his beret cocked at a jaunty angle. He has been a complete non-entity for me. Now, maybe if I were actually a New Yorker and I was going to have to vote in this election, I would be paying closer attention, although there would never be a chance in hell I would vote for him. I would be voting for Mamdani all day. But no, I have not noticed any, I haven't noticed any of the put downs. I haven't paid any attention to Curtis Sliwa whatsoever. And I think that's probably the case for the majority of New Yorkers who are planning to vote as well. But I'm glad that he has provided you with some entertainment. Agent Meister, the thinking woman's piece of crumpet. Peldor Joy, Steve, imagine you're a supervillain about to punish an incompetent lackey who has not been up to snuff. Obviously, the only way to deal with this is to drop him or her into a vat of flesh-eating piranhas. But you can't sully your own hands, so you get another flunky to carry off the wretch. How would you summon your henchmen? Would you clap your hands twice, ring a little bell, or maybe you just press a red button on the arm of your chair? And your favorite lair, cave or hollowed out volcano? Well, you got to go volcano for the lair, first of all. The lair has to, if it cave is fine in a pinch. Volcano for a lair, for sure. What I would do is I would summon the henchman by name. Like let's say the henchman's name was Jason, just to pick a name off the top of my head, completely apropos of nothing. I would call for Jason, and then I would just indicate the person I wanted to be dragged off to the piranha tank just with my hand. I would just, I'd be like, Jason, like that. That's what I would do. No clap, no snap, no button. Just my henchmen would be trained to know what I want, and they would know if I call them by name and make eye contact and then, look over and point at someone else, it's time to drag that motherfucker to the piranha tank. So I would do it that way in my volcano lair. The Grumpy Monkey. How now, Steve? When was the last time you slept in your clothes? Either by accident or design. And I don't mean a lazy doze on the couch. I mean a night's sleep in a bed. Also, and seeing as we don't see much of you from the waist down, what type of shoes do you normally wear? Finally, your thoughts on the 5 years time scene with Mr. Terrific in Superman 2025. I love it. I hope you don't think I'm compiling a dossier on you. Think of it as insatiable nosiness, if you will. And you will, won't you? Just normal black walking shoes, basically, is what I wear. Nothing fancy, just normal black kind of low top walking shoes. I cannot remember the last time I slept in my clothes. It just doesn't happen. I just don't do it. I either sleep in my underwear or a pair of shorts, or maybe a pair of pajama pants and a t-shirt if it's cold and I don't feel like turning on the heat. But no, like the clothes I wear during the day when I'm up and about, like my shirt and my jeans and I never, ever, ever sleep in my clothes like that. I mean, I have in my life, it has happened, but I do not remember the last time. And it's certainly nothing that I do with any frequency. Andy Lawler just can't wait until the new Epstein ballroom opens at the White House. After watching your Loaxana video, it occurs to me that there was a loose end they forgot to tie up in season 3 of Picard, despite the fuck tons of fan service. What happened to Deanna's brother? Loaxana was pregnant last time we saw her, after all. Wait, I've still got characters left? What to do? Guess I'll keep going. What kind of pants do ghosts wear? Boo jeans. How do you know if someone is vegan? Don't worry, they'll fucking tell you. Uh-oh, I think I'm out of space. Okay, bye-bye. Nicely done. My headcanon is they both were killed in a really horrible way during the Dominion War. Let's say, what wasn't Beta Z captured at one point and occupied by the Dominion? Yeah, they were both horribly murdered then. They died screaming and in incredible pain. Yes, that's my headcanon for what happened. And if there had been a line of dialogue in season 3 of Picard that had established that Loaxana and that baby that she was going to have in Deep Space Nine, that they had both been horribly butchered by the Dominion and they screamed and begged for their lives, and then some Jem'Hadar just chopped them up into little pieces, I probably would have liked season 3 of Picard a lot better than I did, because I would have thought, you know what, it's fan service, but they're serving it directly to me, so I got to give it up for them. Cast Iron Chaos. Oh boy, it's the first week where our questions are shortened to 500 characters instead of 1,000 characters. I don't think we will see any difference in the actual questions themselves. People will just have to be more creative in how they write them. That's all. Nicely done, by the way. Actually, I don't have a problem with it. It's Friday. Let's just have some fun while trying to stay positive in the midst of the current era of colossal stupidity. I agree wholeheartedly, my friend, and thank you for your question and for your general support. Isaiah, since you're a massive Superman nerd, and after I watched your late seating podcast review of Superman Returns, I have a question. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention the 5 years time part in Grumpy Monkey. I love the 5 years time scene. It's one of my favorite scenes in the movie. Anyway, Isaiah has a question. How would you feel if someone wanted to make a Superman film that functions more like slapstick comedy combined with a superhero film? Titled, It's a Bird, It's a Plane, It's Actually, What the Fuck Is That? Something tells me you already have this idea. You're like floating it as like, what about this? Like, but you clearly have already thought of it. I can't explain everything in 500 characters, but I'll fill you in more later in later Askaways or Patreon Hangouts. Thoughts? My rule is if it works, go for it. I'm all for it. I'm certainly not against it in principle. Like, I'm not someone who says, no, Superman mustn't be a slapstick comedy. That's beneath the dignity of the character. Like, I don't care. If it's good, go for it. If you can come up with a slapstick comedy starring Superman and it's funny and it's good and it's creative and clever, great. So no, I'm open to the idea for sure. Rusty Ronan, yo Steve, have you ever been to the Exorcist stairs or Edgar Allan Poe's grave? Oh shit, that's 2 questions. Well, just think of it as one Baltimore related question. Way back during my punk rock years, I thought Poe was the greatest. I'm 57 now. Those years was a lifetime ago. However, I still think Poe is great. I'm going to visit both places when I finally make it to Camden Yards. I'm a huge baseball head. I'm doing the visit every MLB stadium thing. Oh, that's cool. I have never been to either place. No, I have never been to the Exorcist Stairs or to Poe's grave. However, I have been to the Babe Ruth birthplace and museum. And if you do make it to Camden Yards and you have time before or after you go to the game, I would recommend going to the Babe Ruth birthplace and museum because it has been a very long time since I was there. But I remember it being a really cool experience, especially if you're a baseball fan. And of course, specifically if you are a Babe Ruth fan. Simon Moody. I'm pretty sure you've said before that Phlox is your favorite Star Trek doctor. Actually, I don't know if I've said that Phlox is my favorite. He's my favorite Enterprise character. I still think McCoy is my favorite doctor, but I really, really like Phlox. But which main cast doctor would you want to treat you, taking away any advantage from their era's medicine tech? And since that was so short, a quick thank you for the fun and positive way you say my last name, which has always been a personal source of minna to me. It's the little things that are getting us through these dark times. I was not conscious of saying your name any particular way, but I'm glad you like the way I say it, and I hope I said it the right way just now. I mean, come on, Dr. Crusher. There's still enough of that 13 or 14-year-old kid in me to be like, Dr. Crusher. I'll be treated by Dr. Crusher. Thank you very much. Yes, because she's a good doctor. Okay. I don't know what the rest of you might be thinking, because she has shown herself over and over again to be a thoroughly competent physician. And that's the only reason. David Colby can't think of a question. I always pay you to answer my questions, but fuck it. You have to ask me a question now. Not so fucking funny now, is it, Shives? All right, I have a question for you. Who the fuck do you think you are? Coming onto my show? Onto my channel? Using your patronage of me to try and flip this around on me? Who the fuck do you think you are? That's my question for you, David Colby. Ya fuck. What do you think of The Great Gatsby? What are your thoughts on The Great Gatsby? If you've read it. That's my question. Glenn H, last minute again. Sigh, don't feel bad. There's a few that came after you, Glenn. Hey, Steve, I need to find out how you can possibly love that show MacGyver so much, because I love it too. I am rewatching it currently and find it cheesy and contrived in many spots, but still a warm comfort show. Richard Dean Anderson's performance is just the right amount of campy, but grounded to make it work. By the way, he is fantastic in Stargate SG-1, and I would recommend you at least watch the first season. Please let me know your thoughts. Wow, 500 characters is so hard. I hope I do not run out. By the way, everybody, this right here, exactly 500 characters. Just so you know the extent of Glenn H's artistry there. Anyway, yeah, I obviously love MacGyver too, and it sounds like we love it for pretty similar reasons. I have called it before the best bad TV show I've ever seen, because if you judge it on the same kind of standards that you would judge a more serious show or a more accomplished show, like, it's not good in that sense, but it is endlessly watchable. I could watch MacGyver over and over again all day, every day, and never get sick of it. It's just an incredibly watchable, enjoyable show. You're right. It is the perfect balance of campy with a few actually good things. Like when I do my MacGyver videos, I always try to point out in the episode I'm talking about the bits that are legitimately well done. And there's always at least one or two things that are actually well done in the midst of all the goofiness and silliness and so bad it's good stuff. But the thing that holds it all together is Richard Dean Anderson. He's just perfect. He's likable, he's watchable, and he's charming and charismatic, and he makes it all look easy, and he holds the whole thing together. He's MacGyver, and he makes it work. So I'm glad you enjoy it. I'm really glad that you're watching you're watching it and or rewatching it and you're enjoying it. JDC, hey Steve, happy 200. Randomly, do you have any thoughts on the second most theater kids episode of Voyager ever, Nemesis? Hint, wrestle your trembles to rages. I love that. Motherless beast. That might be my personal choice for the worst episode of Voyager. It is such a screamingly bad episode. It is, I feel bad for the people in it. I feel, even knowing now what a prick Robert Beltran is and what a fucking, what a scab he is for just flouting the rules during the last actor strike and continuing to do stuff that were against the rules. Like, even though I know that about him and I hold that against him and think less of him because of that, even though all of that is in my head, when I watch Nemesis, I still feel bad for him for having to do that, for having to say those ridiculous lines. He was upturned. He was staked to the ground and upturned. Like, it's the worst. Like, you have to work hard to write dialogue that bad. It goes so far out of its way to be bad that it's almost impressive. It's awful. It's an awful episode. But it's also hilarious. Like, because it is so over the top. Calling it the theater kids episode, that is a perfect description of it. It is like, hey kids, first of all, let's overwrite the shit out of the script and let's make up this ridiculous sounding dialogue. They're aliens. They talk different. Okay. Yeah, it's awful. It's awful, but in a very entertaining way. Damian Williams, hey Steve, my GoFundMe is still up for those who want to help me out, but I want to actually ask a question this time. Star Trek is coming to Magic the Gathering next year, and I was curious if you've ever played the game, or is it too nerdy for you, like TTRPGs? No and yes. I have never played it, and yes, it is too nerdy for me. Yes. I'll go you one better. Not only have I never played it, I never will play it. Ever. I will die before I play Star Trek Magic the Gathering or any other form of Magic the Gathering. But thank you for your question. And if you decide to play it, I hope you have fun. Siamak, who is staring down the barrel of 4:30 p.m. Greetings, Mr. Shives. I do so hope you're doing well. So Saturday was No Kings 2.0. It was invigorating and hopeful, connected with a number of people to advance some SJ work I'm doing. Then this week, 1/3 of the White House is gone. Premiums are skyrocketing. Oh, but we wouldn't be allowed to protest if he were a king. Yeah, no kidding. We're trying to stop that, numbnuts. What's the stupidest thing you've heard this week, Mr. Shives? I think it's also related to the demolition of the East Wing. It's the people defending Trump doing that by saying, well, Obama put in a basketball court. That's got to be the dumbest thing, because it's the dumbest and most obviously ridiculous defense of what Trump is doing. I mean, they've tried to defend it generally by saying, well, other presidents have done stuff to the White House. It's not like the White House has always looked the way it looks now. But a lot of them, because they're racist and because they want to blame everything on the black guy, just instinctively, a lot of them have really zeroed in on, well, Obama put in a basketball court, as though there is any comparison to the president resurfacing a tennis court to make it a basketball court, to the president tearing down the entire East Wing that had stood in its then current form since the Franklin Roosevelt administration, and had stood in that spot in some form since the Teddy Roosevelt administration. But sure, razing that to the ground to build a huge, gaudy, tacky ballroom that nobody fucking asked for is exactly the same as Obama putting in a basketball court. You're right. End of argument. You win. Like, yeah, that's the stupidest thing I've heard. Russell, hey Steve, last Ask Away before Halloween, and given my horrible track record of being able to attend your monthly hangouts and now your Wednesday DS9 watch-alongs, I think this question will be about Halloween. First, happy early Halloween. Thank you, my friend. Second, What is your top 3 favorite scary films? This is hard for me because I love vampire films such as Nosferatu, Fright Night, Lost Boys, Near Dark, Let Me In, and Innocent Blood. I love slasher films, Freddy and Jason, of course, but I hold, and then here's the second part of Russell's question because he is a patron and a member, I hold dear films where the killer is never seen, like Final Destination and Witchboard, and of course Poltergeist. Not to mention the na theme, the Poltergeist theme, I guess. I also love B horror films such as Killer Clowns from Space, House 2, Critters 2, Ghoulies 2. I'm sensing a pattern. I Come in Peace, They Live, and The Stuff. The member question is more just my thoughts than a question, but today I learned that my company has to give sick time PTO. And how did they do that? They are taking away regular PTO. Ugh, not liking the government. So what, they're giving you more paid sick time, but they're taking away regular paid time off to give you more sick time? I don't know. I guess you don't like it and it's bad, so I'm sorry about that. 3 favorite scary movies. The original Dawn of the Dead. Horror of Dracula. And it's tough because I want to say Nosferatu, the original, the silent Nosferatu, but I already said a Dracula movie with Horror of Dracula. So maybe instead I will say The Invisible Man, the original Invisible Man with Claude Rains. Yeah, that's a good top 3, right? That's a good top 3. Dawn of the Dead, Horror of Dracula, The Invisible Man. I'll stand behind that. Joe McClory, I'm surprised that I can even be surprised anymore, but here we are demolishing a wing of the White House for the corporate bribe ballroom, and the motherfucker has the balls to sell that as a good thing, like it is better that he is openly accepting bribes to have the donors immortalized in the White House than it would for tax money to cover it. I know I should care more about the material harm the fascist regime is doing, but the naked corruption mixed with the tackiness, not a question. Thoughts? Well, then this goes back to what I was saying in answer to Dana's earlier question. Symbolism does count for something. And it's not just symbolism, because as you point out, it's corruption on display as well. But the whole episode, the whole thing of Trump tearing down a wing of the White House that has stood for 80 years in its then current form to build a ballroom that nobody but him wanted and that there's no reason for, especially at the ridiculous size that they want to build it at, where it would dwarf every other building in the White House complex. You could not ask for a more perfect symbol of Trump and why he is awful. Like, everything about that maps onto Trump as a person, Trump as a president, and why he is such a disaster. So that symbolism does count for something. So, I mean, I don't think it's bad to be upset about it. I think it's completely reasonable to be upset about it. My video going up on Monday is going to be about that. So yeah, I mean, like I said, in answer to Dana's question, there are more serious things in the world to be upset about, for sure. But this deal with the ballroom and tearing down the East Wing, that's completely legitimate too, to be upset about, because yes, it is once again corruption on display, which should never be tolerated and should never be downplayed, and is really, really important and serious. And it's a fucking crime that the mainstream media is treating it like no big deal when it should be a fucking 4-alarm fire. But also, it symbolizes everything that is wrong and bad and destructive about this administration. Like, there it is. You want to know why this is also bad? You want one thing to represent it visually? There you go. That fucking ballroom. You know? So yeah, it's perfectly reasonable to be upset about it. Air One Fire. Hi, Steve. Theoretically, how would one go about looking for a job? Asking for a friend who already has a resume, but feels it's kind of devoid of any marketable things. And he feels like there's no point in even trying. Best wishes. Well, best wishes to your friend as well, because I have no idea. I really don't know. I mean, find a place that your friend thinks they might like to work and see if they're hiring, or see what kinds of openings they have, if any, or see what they're looking for in an employee, or, see what kind of steps you need to start taking to be a viable option to work there. I really don't know. I'm the wrong person to ask. I would seek out advice from a more knowledgeable resource than the guy who makes YouTube videos for a living and has done for the last 15 years. I'm not the best person to be asking for job hunting advice, but good luck. Good luck to your friend. And finally, Captain Gluten Targ, Stevie-O. Glad I was able to sneak this in time. In honor of episode number 200, I'd like you to name your top 200 favorite Star Trek episodes from any series. Just kidding. I'll just congratulate you on 200. Here's to 200 more. And now I'll just count backwards until I reach 500 characters. Hee hee. 25, 24, 23, 22, 21, 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And what's the character count? Exactly 500 characters for Captain. Again, very nicely done. In fact, this one is even more impressive than the last one, because the last one was, designed to cut off in the middle of a word, and it worked very well. But this, my friend, is very nicely done. Very nicely done. Anyway, that's it for the patron and member questions. Look at that. Finished it in an hour and 16 minutes, which is still is kind of long, but not nearly as long as it had been taking when I was pushing like 2 hours for some of them. Okay. So I'm going to turn my full attention to the live chat and hang out with everybody in just a moment. But first, it's time for a brand new Stuffy and Friends short. So this will go up on its own as a YouTube short on this channel tomorrow at noon. But right now, because you are watching this live stream and demonstrating what a person of class and taste you are in doing so, you get to watch the new Stuffy and Friends short before anybody else. So please now do enjoy this brand new Stuffy and Friends short.
So when they perform Shakespeare in Germany, do they translate it into German?
Yeah.
Is it any good? Nein.
I wonder, when they do a Shakespeare in Australia, do they do it in English or in whatever the hell language they're speaking down there?
I'd like to pose a question to the group.
Go ahead.
Christ.
If you masturbate to thoughts of a zombie, is that necrophilia?
What kind of zombie?
The undead kind.
How many other kinds of zombie are there?
More than that which your mind in its innocent fragility could hope to contain.
Good to know.
You've been watching The Battery again.
That's coincidental. So what do we think? Necrophilia?
Yes.
Of course it's necrophilia. You're wanking to a bloody walking corpse.
Hans?
It depends.
Interesting. On what?
Is the erotic attraction toward the zombie dependent on its status as a reanimated ghoul, or is the fact that it is a shambling mockery of the natural order merely an incidental detail? You really think that makes a difference? It makes all the difference. The hypothetical masturbator in question could be aroused due to an attraction to the zombie's undead nature, or could merely find the zombie physically attractive in the same way they would a living person, in which case they are not a necrophiliac but merely indiscriminate regarding matters of sexual fantasy.
Bollocks.
Nein, I am correct.
Like hell. To your way of thinking, if Catherine the Great was getting the ride from that horse because she thought he had pretty eyes, having nothing to do with the fact that he was a horse, then it wasn't bestiality.
It was indisputably bestiality. However, if it was as you say, it was not zoophilia.
So for bestiality, there's a distinction between the attraction and acting on the attraction. Is there a similar distinction with necrophilia?
I do not believe so.
Interesting.
Are you taking notes?
Since when is it a crime to seek knowledge, Stuffy? Ta-da! All right. I need to reboot my on-screen live chat viewer, as usual by this point in the show. Those of you who are regular viewers will not be surprised by this. But as I do that, let me just go ahead and look at some of the things that we have so far. Oh, Don P1 says, congrats on your 200th Ask Away. Thank you very much. Super chat from Mr. Downside and the Last. Adrenaline in my soul. Goddamn, I like Cody Rhodes. Hey, checking out the shirt, right? Except things are weird. Happy for Cody. He sure as fuck didn't smash that throne, though. No, I guess not. Okay, there's the chat. It's back. No, Cody did not smash the throne. He decided to come back and sit on it instead. But yeah, good for Cody. He's the number one babyface in the fucking wrestling business, so I'm certainly not going to complain. Good for Cody. He's my favorite wrestler. He has been for quite a few years. Some random geek says, no, if your partner is a furry, it is not bestiality. You were actually asked that question. Well, I'm glad that that they asked someone who knew. So yeah. CMX says Hans has begun to concern me. Oh no, he's just intelligent. He just thinks deeply about things. That's all. Stephen Clenard with a super chat. Thank you very much, my friend. Says, just suppose a freak transporter accident combined Loaxana and Alexander into a single combined being, and you are the captain. What do you do with Loaxander? Kill them as quickly as possible. I mean, yeah. Kill them in a way. This is where Janeway fucked up. Janeway killed Tuvix by bringing back Tuvok and Neelix. Now, bringing back Tuvok is fine. I got nothing particular against Tuvok, but bringing back Neelix, that's kind of hard to justify. So, but with Loaxana and Alexander, you have no such problem. So if Loaxana and Alexander are combined into Loaxander, you kill two birds with one stone there. In fact, you can even make it look like an accident. You can say, oh, I know. We'll send them back through the transporter and separate them. This will be easy. We'll just undo it. Boop, boop, boop. Oops. Oh, no, their patterns are being degraded. Oh, no. Oh, they're gone. Oh, no, they're dead. Oh, the transporter. Oh, gosh. Darn it. Just that. I would kill them. They would be gone. I would murder them. And then I would make it look like an accident because you think I'm going to prison for Loaxana and Alexander? Fuck no. I'm getting away with that shit. Mr. Downside. Yeah, glad he's getting his money. Yeah, he's getting his money and he's, he's a star. He's the top guy. I'm really happy for him. And honestly, him going back was one of the big reasons why I started watching WWE again. Because I was like, oh, fuck, Cody's there. I guess I'll start watching again. And it started actually getting good. Cody coming back wasn't the only thing. Like the whole show improved. Coincidentally, after Vince McMahon was no longer involved. And they had a really good couple of years creatively. And it's kind of, not been super great lately, but it still hasn't been terrible. But yeah, so, good for Cody. Steve Schmeling says, my wife walked in while you were talking about jacking it to a zombie. Thanks, prick. I'll be sending you my divorce lawyer bill. Good luck. Well, I hope you have another lawyer that can drag my ass to court to get me to pay it. I'm very sorry. But also, I think it's kind of funny. There you go, Damien. The transporter accident from the motion picture. That will take care of it. Stephen Clark with another super chat. Thank you, my friend. Says, couldn't you at least wait until Loaxander has the opportunity to kill Neelix and Chipotle in the second act? Okay. I keep Loaxander around long enough for them to kill Neelix and, as you insist on calling him, to my great amusement, Chipotle. And then after that, then I have to, by the end of the episode, Loaxander has to be dead. Dead. Not split back into Loaxana and Alexander. Dead. So yeah, okay. We'll string him along for a little bit. All right. David Colby says, I liked The Great Gatsby when I read it in high school, but it has been ages since I've read it. But it must wait until I finish Clive Barker's Weave World. Holy shit, what a book. Okay, well, I was just curious. I'm not trying to give you homework. But you liked it. So take that, Dana. David Colby remembers liking it. Oh, Zoxian says, preference for Loxana fix. Make her a less bad person or treat her like a villain. I mean, I don't really have a preference between those two. Either one, as long as she's a better character, you know? I mean, for me personally, just selfishly, because of how I feel about the character, I would say treat her like a villain and punish her and make her suffer just for my own, you know, sadistic pleasure. Like, yes, you know, but really seriously, I don't have a strong preference. Just make it better. The Darth Eddie says, good news on the Virginia gubernatorial race. The Democrat is still ahead by roughly 10 points with just 11 days to go until Election Day. Democrats may also gain legislative seats. Boy, I hope so. Boy, I hope so. And I hope it is a trend that is carried on throughout the nation. Sinister Intelligence says, my Superman character crashes to Earth, finds a Superman t-shirt and jeans to wear along with a pair of red Converses and a red and yellow utility belt as his costume. Yeah, it's weird. Okay, I can see that. David Colby says, my most formative high school artistic exposure was my teacher who kept playing us Bob Dylan songs, which made me realize that I love Bob Dylan even if he cannot sing. Same boat, my friend. Same boat. I love Bob Dylan. I will grudgingly admit that he cannot sing, but it's not like I listen to Bob Dylan songs and I think, oh, if only he could sing. Like, I love Bob Dylan. I love the whole thing. But yeah, he does not have a conventionally good voice, especially not these days. Joshua Irwin 2016, thank you very much. Says, no questions, just thanks for everything. Enjoy hearing your takes on the issues. Have a great weekend. Thank you very much, my friend. David Colby says, it's funny that the Bob Dylan biopic came out and everyone was like, wow, Timothy can't fucking sing. And I was like, no, that's just how he sounds. Yeah, he was even in his younger days, Bob was never like the best, like technical singer. That wasn't really the point. Daryl Lett says, you want a leader who works for the people. What if the people are divided? Men versus women, old versus young, bi-coastalers versus flyover country. It's workers versus welfare class. Well, then I want a leader who chooses sides for the people that I support. Damian Williams says, we just need Jess Bush to make Loxana a watchable character like she did Chapel. Yeah, I think she would at least be able to manage some degree of improvement. Somebody said, what was it? I think it was on Blue Sky or Threads or something. Somebody said, if they do a new version of Loxana, who should play her, Rebecca Romaine or Jess Bush? And then someone suggested, that same person suggested that they should switch off between scenes. And it reminded me of the Mitchell and Webb sketch where they played actors who couldn't they were playing Holmes and Watson, but they couldn't decide who would play Holmes and who would play Watson. So when they made a movie of Sherlock Holmes, they would switch from scene to scene. Or like in one scene, David Mitchell was playing Holmes and Webb was playing Watson, and then they would walk into the next room and they were in the opposite roles. Do it like that. Steve Schmeling says, my Clark Kent gets the greatest American hero super suit and also loses the instructions. Help, I don't know how it works. So the greatest American hero, basically. or he's Clark Kent and he already has his Superman powers. And then he also finds the greatest American hero suit. So he has those powers in addition to the Superman powers. So he becomes the greatest American Superman hero. The two Beckys from Roseanne. There you go, Damien. Darth Eddie says, a folk singer with a really good voice was John Denver. Oh, man. Yeah, he did have a great voice. Would we call him a folk singer? I guess so. I guess he was folk. Folk/country, maybe. Yeah, John Denver had a great voice. I still to this day say my favorite version of the Christmas Carol "Oh Holy Night" is the one that John Denver did on the Today Show in like 1996 or something, 95, 96. Um, John Denver performed live on the Today Show one Christmas season, and he did "Oh Holy Night" like an acoustic guitar performance of "Oh Holy Night," and I still remember it. It's beautiful. I think it's on YouTube. Um, just fantastic. He had a great voice, and he was a good songwriter. I like John Denver. Um, David Colby with the greatest American hero theme song. Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. Kirok with a super chat. Thank you, my friend. First, Siamak, Dolly Parton is the Loxana. Sure, make her impossible to dislike. Go ahead, cast Dolly Parton. So if I still don't like the character, I feel like the biggest asshole in the world, and I start questioning everything. What's wrong with me? I don't like her. Dolly Parton's playing her. What's wrong with me? Anyway, Kirok with a super chat. To answer your question, Steve, we didn't have sick time off. The government made paid time off. The government made sick leave paid time off mandatory, so companies are taking it from regular paid time off, meaning sales associates won't get any regular paid time off anymore, and managers only get 26. Well, I mean, I don't know how that's the government's fault. That's the company being scumbags to try and to try and meet, the government's mandate to get a certain amount of paid sick time. I don't know if you should be mad at the government. You should be mad at the company for being scumbags about it and taking it from your regular paid time off instead of just giving you more paid sick time off in addition to the regular paid time off. Country pop. Okay. Yeah. Greg Gildersleeve. Yeah. That's a fair description of John Denver. Stu John. Oh, that's good. I love that. John Denver was a plain, down to earth sort of guy. God bless you for that joke. What a great dark joke. I love that so much. I didn't know this, Stephen. This is interesting. John Denver's birth name was John Colorado Springs. How about that? Who knew? Dana says Dolly would turn down the request to play such a selfish, manipulative character. Yeah, maybe. Or she wouldn't get the part in the first place because she wasn't married to the creator of the show. Believe it or not, George isn't at home. Please leave a message at the beep. I must be out or I'd pick up the phone. Where could I be? Believe it or not, I'm not home. One of the dumbest, most random jokes Seinfeld ever did, but I do enjoy it so. Darth Eddie says, the talking Betazoid gift box with Armin Shimmerman's face or Loaxana. Remember, the box has no legs, so it can't follow you all over the ship, so that automatically gives it bonus points. Yes, and also, I mean, do we know that the box is even sentient? Like, is the box a life form, or is it just a talking box with a face that just does what it's programmed to do? What I'm saying is, could I legally just smash the box to pieces with a baseball bat? And I wouldn't get in trouble for, nobody would arrest me for murder if I just fucking beat the shit out of that box, right? So I feel like legally you'd have more options than if you had to deal with Loaxana. Because for all of her unlikable qualities, she still is a person and a citizen with rights. So you couldn't just kill her. Like, you'd have to make it look like an accident to get away with it. Whereas with the Armin Shimmerman talking suitcase, you maybe, depending on its legal status, you could just fucking beat it to death. And then that's it. You go on with your day. So that might be something to think about. Actually, Double Guitar says, I don't like how Americans call it paid time off. It feels like a capitalist way of making it sound like they're doing you a favor when it's leave everybody should be entitled to. Yeah, we do. We have a lot of euphemisms like that. I mean, yeah, it's capitalist, sure, but I think it's also, like, as you point out, it's an American thing as well. Yeah. Kirak says, thank you once again for the super chat, buddy. Says, did you see any of those B-rated horror films I mentioned in my Patreon or member question? If so, what did you think of those? Let me go back and take another look at it. Actually, I think the only one that I have actually seen of the ones you listed is They Live. And I love They Live. They Live is a great movie. David Colby, I agree. David says, I like the horrifying talking gift box. It was weird space bullshit and Star Trek is neat. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it's a great idea. Yeah. I wish that there were more randomly weird shit like that in Star Trek. Because absolutely, you're absolutely right. I love the just off the wall, random, goofy shit like, hey, it's a face in a box announcing someone's arrival. I like it. Blade Winter says, did you watch Matt Baum's video on Loaxana? No, I did not. No, I did not. Oh, Steven, you're right. Oh, I do not want to listen to Shives talking about smashing Loaxana's box. You know what? Now that I hear it like that, I don't want to do that either. So I apologize. I sincerely apologize. Dana says you couldn't just kill her. You'd also have to torture her first. Geez, what is wrong with you? No, I don't care. I'm not trying. No, I mean, look, if there was a way to kill her, but also torture her, like I'm open to that, but it's much, you and I are very similar in this way, Dana. You know how when you're driving and there's a person in front of you on the road that is pissing you off, you just want to get that person out of your way. That's how I would feel about Loaxana. I wouldn't want to like teach her a lesson or make her feel the same pain that I felt. I just want to take her off the board. Like just remove her. That's all. That's all I care about. Stephen Schmeling with some more detail on the Greatest American Superman thing. Clark gets powers and the Greatest American Hero suit, and they don't cooperate and reject each other. So Clark saves the day as a regular guy wearing goofy pajamas. That has some potential. So he can't take the suit off. Like he puts the suit on, like, check this out. I'm going to put on this suit that looks so much worse than my regular suit. And then like he can't take it off. So, but it cancels out his actual powers and his powers cancel it out. So he's just a regular guy. Yeah. I actually really like that idea. Kirak says you never saw the stuff. I don't think so. Oh, John Stewart, voluntary mandatory overtime. Yeah, that would piss me off too. I never had to deal with that during the relatively brief period when I had an actual job. I was always fortunate enough in the situation that I was in where I was always asked if I could work overtime. I was never told I had to. And whenever I was asked, except for maybe one or two times, I always said no. I was like, no, thank you. I'm not doing that. I worked my 40 hours this week. I'm not working anymore. So yeah, being told you have to come in for overtime, like even if you're being paid more, that would piss me off. Like, nope, I don't want to do that. It's not my problem. If you can't find other people to cover, it's not my problem. Yeah, CMAC, I feel like the word leave implies more permission. Yeah, I guess. Geek says American exceptionalism is quite capitalistic for sure. We're not like those godless commies. Yeah, I mean, I think that's true, but we do that with other capitalist countries too. I mean, all of those, Northern European countries that Republicans like to call, socialist paradises, they all have capitalist economies. And they're all way more humane and, fair and equitable places to live than this country. I mean, they still all have their problems as well. But in terms of like quality of life and access to education and, basic necessities, like they're way ahead of us. And they're still capitalist economies. But Republicans, I think they're still kind of stuck in that mode. So they talk about them as though they're these, communist hellscapes when they're actually not. They're democracies and capitalist countries with robust welfare states that come a lot closer to serving the needs of their populations than we do. Steve Schmaling, Loaxana plus Neelix equals Loaxlix. Oh boy, the licks there is unfortunate. Um, Lady Intrigue says, can't get the idea of Jennifer Coolidge as the Loxana out of my head. I mean, at least then she might be funny, because Jennifer Coolidge could just do that thing she always does and at least, get a laugh just on the basis of that, just of, her typical type and that thing she does. That might be funny. It certainly would be funnier than what they actually did with Loxana on the show most of the time. 225 AD says, how do you feel about Bernie's dismissive reaction to being asked to comment on the Plattner tattoo thing? I found it very disappointing. Yeah, I think it's disappointing. I don't think people are being out of line to be upset about the fact that a Democratic candidate has a fucking Nazi tattoo on his chest and has had it for a long time. And his story apparently was, I didn't know it was a Nazi symbol, which I am very skeptical of. And even if that is true, so he's an oblivious dumbass. Like the possibilities are he had a fucking Totenkopf skull on his chest. And the options are either he's so fucking oblivious and out of touch that he didn't realize that it was a Nazi symbol, or he did realize it was a Nazi symbol, and now he's lying about not realizing it and hoping that we're all dumb enough to believe that. So neither one of those options is good. And people are completely right to be upset about that and to ask, can't we do any better than this? So yeah, Bernie's like trying to wave it off and say it's not important, it's a distraction or whatever. Like, yeah, that's disappointing. People, it's not overreacting to have a problem with that, Bernie. It's a fucking Nazi symbol tattooed on the dude's chest, okay? Alexander plus Chipotle, Alex Oakley. Straight to the airlock. Get off my ship. David Colby says, Star Trek should steal more shit from obscure sci-fi stuff. I want to see the crew of the Enterprise have to deal with the evil green orb from Heavy Metal. I agree. I mean, I love when Star Trek does like random weird sci-fi stuff. I'm way more interested in that kind of shit than in the world building. I want more world building. Get the fuck out of here. I want them to like visit some random planet where like everything is exactly the same as Earth, only people wear underpants on their head. Like that, I'm way more interested in that than I wonder what the Klingon government is like. I don't fucking care. I wonder how Cardassia is doing 20 years after the Dominion War. I don't fucking care. I don't ever want to see any of that shit again. I want to see new shit, Actually, double guitars. Did you even like the Loxana episode where she has to face the tragic death of her young daughter? I thought it was really touching and she did a good action. No, I don't like that episode. I consider that episode to be a very belated play for sympathy for Loxana. Oh, don't you feel bad for her? She's been suppressing the grief of her dead child all these years. Maybe that's why she is the way she is. Sorry, not buying it. You can't just graft a tragedy onto her backstory and be like, see, she's not so bad, right? No, she's still the fucking worst. I don't care. I don't feel bad for her. I don't feel sorry for her. She's the worst. No, the one episode of Loxana that I like is the one I say in my video, which is Half a Life, the Timothy episode. I genuinely think that is a good episode, and Loxana comes across fairly well in that episode. That's the one I like. The rest of them, I can't get through it without wanting to see her, pushed out into the vacuum of space. Like, she's awful. She's the worst. But that episode, no, I like that episode. But none of the other ones. Not the fucking dead daughter episode, not any of the Deep Space Nine episodes. Nothing. The Deep Space Nine episode, when she's stuck with Odo in that elevator, I'm thinking, I wonder if this elevator falls all the way to the bottom. I mean, she would die, but Odo would probably be okay, right? I mean, that's kind of what I'm hoping would happen. Like, just let the elevator fall all the way to the bottom. She gets turned into fucking tomato sauce, and Odo's fine because he is naturally tomato sauce. So he'll be good, you know? David, you're right. That stuff is world building. You're absolutely right. And that's, well, see, that's the thing. In a serialized thing like Star Trek, everything that happens is world building. The problem is the people who say, I want more world building, they just want to revisit stuff they've already seen. Or they want to see boring shit like, I wonder what the societal structure of those aliens we saw one time is like, or just boring bullshit that nobody could possibly honestly care about. But yeah, if they find a planet where instead of water, it's peanut butter or whatever, like, hey, that's world building. Now we know there's that place. And that's what those people are like. Yeah, everything that happens can be viewed as world building. It's world building in the sense of you accumulate things as you tell different stories versus let's abandon drama and just try to, sketch out every possible boring fucking thing about this made up world. Yes, I agree. It's just exciting world building where you meet evil green space orbs and not boring world building where you learn Spock has an evil twin. Good night, Dana. Dana's pumpkining. Good night, Dana. Steve Schmeling says, do you suppose Luoxana asked Timothy about his work in MASH just before he died? She didn't ask that man any questions about himself. She probably said right before he, did whatever they do in the resolution, she probably said, is there anything else about me you'd like to know? The last thing she said to that man before he closed his eyes for the last time were, do you have any final questions about me? Lazy Boy Grawl says, what was your favorite return of existing Trek material? Wrath of Khan. Wrath of Khan might be it. Yeah. I mean, it depends on what you mean by existing Trek material. Like there are lots of recurring characters that I enjoy. Like Q was a recurring character that I thought was great. I mean, especially in TNG and his first appearance on Voyager. The other ones not so much, but his first Voyager episode was very good. And pretty much all of his TNG episodes were good. Well, the ones in the first season weren't so great, but after that, Q was pretty much a guaranteed good episode. But if you mean something that was sort of imported from a previous series or like a past version, which I guess, it depends on how you look at it. I mean, Wrath of Khan was a classic Trek movie, but still it was a movie, not a TV show. So yeah, if you consider Wrath of Khan to be, Star Trek bringing back like a something from old material, yeah, I think Wrath of Khan's probably my favorite. I think it's definitely the best example. Scotty in Relics is pretty good though. I really like Scotty in Relics, the TNG episode Relics. I think that's a really good example too. Really good episode. John Stewart says the best Star Trek series they've done was stolen from J. Michael Straczynski. I think that is at best a very, very simplified way of looking at it. I did a whole video about that. I don't think it's as a simple matter of saying, well, Deep Space Nine was ripped off from Babylon 5. I don't think that's the case, even though there are obviously similarities between the two shows. Darth Eddie says, what's your opinion on the Scott Bakula pitch to Paramount to make a West Wing style Star Trek show with an aging President Archer? Seems like he's made headway with the studio. I mean, I would rather they just do something completely different with no legacy characters at all. But I mean, would I rather see that show than something like season 3 of Star Trek Picard? Yes, yes. I would prefer it if Scott Bakula was the only returning actor. You know, if it's about President Archer as, you know, the president of the Federation and it's decades after the events of Star Trek Enterprise, then I would like it if Archer was the only. I don't want it to be the Enterprise reunion show. You know, I don't want it to just be an excuse to see, oh, hey, what's Hoshi up to? You know, how's T'Pol doing? Like, that's not, I don't care. I don't care. And that's not what the show should be. You know, it shouldn't be the reunion tour. It should be, okay, let's do a new show about this character who is familiar, but is in a completely different part of his life and is dealing with a different situation. But it's still Star Trek, and maybe it's a kind of Star Trek we haven't done before. It's a tone we haven't done. It's a kind of show we haven't done, more of a political procedural than like a space exploration show. And maybe we can draw some parallels between current events, like Star Trek has always done and is supposed to do. You know, and maybe some of us would like it to be doing more often than it has been recently. You know, I would be all for that. But do I want it to just be fan service and, hey, look at all the Enterprise actors we brought back? No, I have no interest in that whatsoever. But if it's a way to get an original show made, then yeah, sure, let's give it a shot. I would certainly watch it. Okay, some more super chats. Let's see here. Kirok says, I hate to be that person, but what are your thoughts on this government shutdown? The fact that all items which won't be EBT eligible will now be taxed, or fact the shutdown will hurt SSI or other benefits. I think the government shutdown is terrible. I think it's terrible. But I mean, you should be mad at President Trump and the Republicans for that, not the Democrats. Not that you're saying you should be, but no, I mean, yeah, but I know the government shutdown is terrible. And Zebediah Strange, thank you for the super chat, my friend, says, I'll be that person, trials and tribulations. No, I know that's a good one. I like trials and tribulations. I'll go along with that as far as like bringing back old stuff for a new show. Yeah, I'll go along with that. Someone else said trials and tribulations. You said it earlier before the super chat. Do. 255 AD says, do you think they could have made Half a Life with any other character in her role? I think it kind of has to be her because she doesn't care about the Prime Directive like the others. Maybe, but I mean, her, like the defiance of the Prime Directive doesn't wind up being that big of a deal. You know? But I don't know. I mean, I haven't really thought about it with other characters possibly being involved, because I think it's a good episode. I haven't really thought about like, how would you change it? You know? Sinister Intelligence says, Isaiah says, I'm glad you didn't shoot down my Superman costume idea. I need to outline and wargame it out better on paper and share it with you all next Ask Away. Cool. I look forward to it. David Colby must go now, not because you're Dana in disguise. Boy, I sure hope you're not. Otherwise, you're doing a really good job of faking either hating The Great Gatsby or liking The Great Gatsby as far as you can remember from high school. Anyway, glad you were here. Good to see you. Thomas Fuchs says the Borg removing whole settlements from the surface of planets was a very East Wing show. That's good. I like that. That's a good job. John Stewart says, are you guys planning to review the Academy show when it comes out? I mean, as far as like me and Jason, we haven't talked about it. I will probably do with it what I did with Strange New Worlds this season, which is I'll just watch the whole thing as it comes out. And when I've seen all the episodes, I'll do a video about the whole season. That's my rough plan, you know, at the moment. I'll just review the whole thing at the end of the season. Brian Beswick says Star Trek needs to branch out like the MCU and greenlight everything. I don't know about that, but I do wish they would be a little more adventurous. I wish they would be a little more adventurous in stuff that they would try out for sure. Um, um, Lazy Boy Grohl says, would you rather follow a new cast of young Starfleet cadets off on their first missions or an established crew aboard a completely different ship? New cast of young Starfleet. But the answer for me is always new cast. Show me characters I don't know. If it's a new show, show me new characters. And we've never really done like there's never been, we've done established crew on a ship a bunch of times already. I mean, we've done Star Trek and Star Trek The Next Generation and Deep Space Nine, although that mostly wasn't on a ship, but still same idea. And Voyager and Enterprise. Like we've done crew on a starship a bunch of times. And there's no reason why they couldn't do that again and it would be good. Like it's a sturdy formula. It's Star Trek 101, but they've never done a series that was based on, they're all young officers, they're all cadets, or the show focuses on the inexperienced officers in a meaningful way, not like Lower Decks did it, but like in a meaningful way that actually affects the point of view of the show and how the stories are written. That would be interesting. That would be worth giving a shot just to see how that goes. I would just, based on that alone, I would be more interested in that. What would you, Sinister Intelligence says, what would you like to see in a Superman comedy film? Brainiac shrinking stuff hijinks, which we kind of got a little of in the last season of the Harley Quinn show, but I would lean into it even more. I would have Brainiac show up and try to think of as many funny ways to use Brainiac as I possibly could. Because I love Brainiac. I love Brainiac as a serious villain. I love Brainiac as a goofy villain. Because even when Brainiac is a serious villain, Brainiac is a goofy villain. Because he's an evil robot from space who shrinks things. And like, what's better than that? He's an evil robot from space who shrinks things and puts them in bottles. Oh, yeah, Prodigy is kind of like that. Geek, you're right. But I guess I was thrown off because the kids in Prodigy aren't really, I mean, they become Starfleet cadets, I guess, in the second season, but in the first season, they're kind of more like a ragtag group that kind of find a starship. But yeah, Prodigy for sure qualifies. And yes, Prodigy was great. Thomas says, I want them, and I've heard this episode a lot, and I agree with it, but I disagree with it. Says, I want them to make a cheaper show with 24 episodes per season and mostly episodic, though also having some story arcs. I agree with that second part. I think that's how series television should just be written as a rule, because a TV series is a series of episodes. So if that's the way you're presenting it, then each episode should have its own story. But because it's also a series, there should be arcs that are carried through that kind of tie it all together and build up and pay off at a certain point. Like, I just think that's the way to do it. Instead of treating it like a movie that you have hacked up into 8 or 10 or 12 parts and stretched out, make it episodic, but have threads that go through the episodes to sort of, make it cohesive. I agree with that. I also agree that a good television show, even a good sci-fi show like a Star Trek show, doesn't necessarily need to be as expensive as it is. Like, there are ways of doing it and doing it well that you don't have to break the bank in order to do it. But I honestly, everybody says they should go back to making more episodes. I honestly couldn't give a shit how many episodes they make. Like, that makes no difference to me at all. I just want it to be good. You're like, do I care if they're going to do another season of Star Trek, but it's going to be 20 episodes this time? Okay, great. Are they going to be good? Like, I don't care how many episodes. Make 10 episodes a year. Make 6 episodes a year. I don't fucking care. Just make it good. You know? Um 25 AD says Bernie's reaction to being asked about Plattner was to be like, why are you asking me about this when the shutdown is happening? Is that whataboutism? Kinda. I mean, the shutdown is important. Like, I understand the Democrats wanting to keep talking about the shutdown because it is important and and politically it's a good issue for them. So I understand wanting to talk about it. But I mean, the Plattner thing, like it's a valid concern. You know, like it's not, he kind of tried to wave it off like it's just some sort of distraction. And I mean, you can say there are more important things to talk about. That's fine. There are, but it's not as though the Plattner thing isn't important and doesn't deserve to be addressed, you know? Blade Winter says, what do you think of Brainiac making tiny copies of himself and slowly controlling the populace by driving a machine implanted in people's brains? I love that. That's the dumbest, goofiest thing I've ever heard. I love that. Yes. Tiny Brainiac clones driving people's heads. I think that's fucking fantastic. Have you got anything goofier? That's what I would be saying. I love it, but make it goofier. Oh, Geek says, before we end the show, Phoenix updated their GoFundMe mentioning how the government shutdown is affecting them because of how they rely on food stamps. Yes, so please, I'm gonna wrap up the show here in a second. Anyway, but yes, thank you for the reminder. Actually, let me go ahead and wrap things up. And if anybody has any final questions in the live chat, go ahead and toss them out. And I will answer some final questions after I get through the end of the show spiel. First of all, since Geek brought it up, make use of the links that Geek is sharing in the live chat right now if you want to help out some friends of ours who need a helping hand and you have a few spare bucks lying around. And those links are also found in charitylinks.page, which is linked in the description of this live stream. And that is maintained by our friend Some Random Geek and has links to help out a bunch of our friends who need a helping hand, who are in a tough economic situation. So if you can help out any of our friends by throwing some money their way to help them out in their time of need, please consider doing that. As for me, if you would like to consider helping me to continue doing this YouTube channel, you can do so in a couple of different ways. You can become a Patreon supporter by going to patreon.com/Steve Shives and becoming a patron, or by clicking the join button and becoming a member of this YouTube channel. Either way, for any level of support, one of the perks that you unlock for yourself is you can submit questions ahead of time for these twice monthly Ask Away live streams. And those are the questions that I answer in the first part of the show, questions that were submitted early by my patrons and my channel members. So if you enjoy this YouTube thing that I do, and you want to help me to continue doing it, because I could not do it without my patrons and channel members. You folks are a really, really great source of support for me and allow me to continue doing this, which I am incredibly grateful for. And if you are not doing so already, but you can afford it and you want to, patreon.com/Steve Shives, or just click the join button right here on the YouTube channel. Also, YouTube channel. Also, don't forget that I'm also on a couple of podcasts in addition to doing the YouTube thing. They are part of the Lemmy Listen family of podcasts. I do Late Seating, which is the movie review podcast, alongside the brilliant and wonderful and hilarious Jason Harding. And we take a look at classic films and give them a fresh look and a fresh review and see if they deserve whatever reputation they have, be it good or bad. Our current episode of Late Seating is the second of our annual Halloween shows, where we are reviewing the classic Todd Browning 1932 horror film, sort of a horror film, not really, but it's usually thought of as a horror film, but it's Freaks. So if you want to hear our thoughts on Freaks, you can listen to the latest episode of Late Seating. And In addition to late seating, I'm also a regular cast member on the Ensign's Log, which is the Star Trek themed comedy podcast that myself and Jason are on alongside our friend and co-star Amanda Billings. And the three of us play characters, original characters that we have created who exist in the Star Trek universe, and we're kind of off doing our own thing while Star Trek stuff is happening in the background. And it's a ton of fun to do. We have a great time doing the show, and hopefully those of you who listen to it are having a good time listening to it. And there's a whole bunch of show if you haven't listened to it yet. It's a great binge listen if you want to get into it. And if you've never listened to it, but you enjoy Star Trek and you enjoy irreverent Star Trek stuff, Star Trek satire, things that make fun of Star Trek, I think you will enjoy our show very much. So please check out the Ensign's Log as well. And also, like I said before, please don't forget charitylinks.page for some friends of ours who are in need. Yes, hang out this Sunday. Thank you, my friend. Our regular last Sunday of the month patrons and members hangout is this Sunday starting at noon Eastern, where it's me and a dozen channel members and patrons, and we hang out for an hour and we're in a Zoom call together. And I also broadcast it live on YouTube. So if you're not in the call with me, you can still watch and enjoy. And yeah, looking forward to that as always. Let's see any final questions in the chat. Let's see. Darth Eddie says Prodigy did 20 episodes per season and almost all of them were gold. I thought Prodigy in both seasons took a little while to get going, to be honest. Like if I honestly think if Prodigy had cut it down to maybe 15 or 13 episodes, that would have been fine. Because those first few episodes of both seasons it was like, all right, once it got going, it was fantastic. Like I love Prodigy, but both seasons, the first few episodes, I was like, okay, like let's get this show on the road, kids. Somebody else said something about episode numbers too. Where was it? Oh, Zebediah said 6 episodes of quality beats 24 of crap. Yes, I agree. Anonymous just became a 99-cent member. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Stephen Collard says hashtag beat LA. So you're so you're rooting for the Blue Jays, are you? I guess I am too. I'm an American League guy when it comes down. I have nothing personal against the Dodgers. I don't hate the Dodgers at all. But I'm an American League guy, so I'll root for the Blue Jays. Geek says, let the team that wears blue win. Yeah, well, there you go. That's a nice, safe bet, isn't it? Hey, Chapetico, you're at the very end of the show. Sorry, buddy. I'm about to wrap it up. Zebediah said, if you had to live inside a vending machine, which one would you pick and how would you pass the time? I would want to live in just like a snack machine, one of those vending machines that have like the random snacks, like candy bars and those like cinnamon rolls in the plastic wrappers and that kind of shit, and there's like a piece of fruit, like a random, like an apple or a banana in there too, that nobody wants, but is always in there. I'd live in one of those. And how would I pass the time? I would be eating myself to death constantly. Barbara says, not a question, but a plea. Please try watching Drooby. No promises. Anna, yes, you made it. Hi. The show's pretty much over, but I'm glad you're here. And I'm glad you became a member. I really appreciate it. Some Random Geek says the Blue Jays represent all of Canada. That's you know what? That's true. It is a Canada versus US series this year. And I mean, especially given how things have gone lately, how can you root against Canada? That's a good one. As long as the vending machine had Swedish fish and chips, we're good. Okay, there we go. All right. Yes, we all made it. And now it's time to wrap things up. Silent Mandible says, I'm glad I found you again after a decade. I used to watch you for your atheism videos, and I'm glad you didn't fall into the chuddy side that a lot of them did. Well, thank you. So am I. I'm very glad too. One more from 255 AD. Even if Obama is right about incrementalism being the best option, should he be honest about the death that involves? That's really more what I was asking for. I mean, I guess it certainly wouldn't hurt. But like I said, I mean, you're comparing, like, there will be even more death if we do nothing, you know? And if part of his purpose is to try and get people on board with the kind of change that he supports, then that might be a smarter way of delivering that message, instead of saying, oh, and by the way, a bunch of people are still going to die, even though that may be true. Anyway, that's it, everybody. Thank you all so much for being here. Oh, CMAC. Oh my God. Yes. If the Blue Jays win, Trump would have to have them at the White House. What would be better, if they actually showed up or if they completely blew them off? I can't decide. Anyway. All right. Thank you all so much for being here. I really appreciate it. This is number 200. Can you believe this is the 200th one of these that I have done? I could not do this without you. I could not do this without your continued interest and support. Thank you so much to all of you. Those of you who are like regular financial supporters, as patrons and as members, those of you who have been generous with super chats, both tonight and over the years, and those of you who have never given me a dime, but have just watched and commented and liked and shared and chatted and all of that. It all means a lot to me. It's all important to me. It all matters. I couldn't do this without you. So thank you so much for being here. And yeah, as a couple of people have said already, here's to 200 more. I can do 200 more of these at least, right? Let's go for it. Have a good night. Have a good weekend, everybody, and take care of yourselves. I'll see you next time.